Hello and welcome to Telesur English. I am Estefania Bravo and this is from the South. Yet another opposition party has joined the dialogue table established by the Venezuelan government and representatives of small opposition parties on September 16th. Evangelical pastor Javier Bertucci, leader of the Hope for Change party and former presidential candidate, joined Vice President Delcy Rodriguez and other authorities to sign the agreements first announced on Monday. Bertucci, who ran against President Maduro in the May 20th, 2018 election, took a third place, receiving 10.8% of the vote. Bertucci also made a call to all opposition parties to join this dialogue, saying the government has shown willingness to find solutions for the benefit of all citizens and that everyone should come together to find a way forward.
We must provide solutions for the Venezuelan people who are living, in my opinion, one of the worst times in their history. It's urgent. For that reason, we cannot continue postponing or showing attitudes of pride or hubris. Here, no pride should reign over the needs of the people. And I'll be clear, politics should not have power as its objective. Politics should have as objective service to the people. Following this line, we must all work. We cannot just substitute whichever initiative. I am one who thinks that the dialogue initiative with Norway should continue and allow that this dialogue also proceed in a parallel fashion. At the end of the day, we are in search for solutions and results.
And in compliance with these agreements, on Tuesday, the Venezuelan government granted the release of a first prisoner. National Assembly Vice President Edgar Zambrano, who stands accused of terrorism, was seen leaving jail and speaking to the media. He had been arrested by intelligence agents on May 8th for his role in the April 30th coup attempt and held for 4 months. As a condition for his release, Zambrano must appear in court every 30 days and cannot leave the country. Representatives of opposition parties were there to greet him. Over the past few months, Colombia has continuously attacked the Venezuelan government under false pretenses, accusing it of harboring criminal gangs, among many other things. For this reason, President Nicolás Maduro ordered the deployment of the armed forces all along the Colombian border to protect Venezuela's sovereignty from any possible attack.
In the face of ongoing aggression from Colombia, the Bolivarian National Armed Forces have increased their patrols along the border, both on land and at sea.
We are keeping watch and safeguarding our maritime sovereignty against contraband and illegal vessels.
Over the past few months, cases of illegal vessels caught sailing in Venezuelan waters are being taken care of by the Attorney General's office, as the Navy's main priority is guarding oil drilling platforms.
In Maracaibo, part of the Coast Guard's duty is to protect oil drilling stations as well as protect our nation's ships.
These military exercises showcase the technical capacity and combat readiness of the armed forces for operation on land, sea or air to repel any possible aggressions backed by the U.S. government.
The armed forces today more than ever stand steady to defend our nation's sovereignty. We have extraordinary defense systems. We have the continent's most advanced anti-air defense system, the latest generation warplanes and helicopters. Our sniper units have received the best training possible and are using the most accurate rifles in the world.
The Venezuelan government in various occasions has said they have no intentions of initiating any armed conflict and has only asked that peace in the region be maintained.
Argentina said it has approved a food emergency law that will increase state funds to fight hunger and improve nutrition as the country grapples with runaway inflation and increased poverty. The measure allocates a 50% boost in the current budget for national public food and nutrition policies. The Senate's approval comes after the lower house overwhelmingly voted in favor of the measure on September 12th. It was proposed by opposition lawmakers, including those from the party of Alberto Fernandez, the presidential frontrunner in the upcoming election. Several protests have been staged over the past months against austerity measures introduced by President Mauricio Macri in order to comply with the terms of an IMF bailout. We now move to Brazil, where the general prosecutor Raquel Dodge has asked the Supreme Court of Justice to start a new investigation into the murder of Rio Councilwoman Marielle Franco. Dodge says that the initial investigation was marred by outside interference in order to divert any probes into those who were behind the assassination. She added that these unknown players manipulated the justice system with the help of a retired councilman, 2 police officers, and a lawyer. Under these accusations, the prosecutor's office has requested that the investigation be removed from a state court and be handed over to a federal court. An outspoken activist for the rights of women and Afro-Brazilians, Marielle Franco, was killed along with her driver, Anderson Gomez, in March of 2018 in Rio de Janeiro. Residents of Tegucigalpa in Honduras are being subjected to severe water rationing due to the worst drought in the region in decades. Citizens say the government has neglected to send water tankers to many neighborhoods and that they're forced to buy water from private vehicles. Many citizens have taken to blocking roads and bridges to demand access to water, but their demonstrations are quickly repressed by the police.
For the past 20 years, not a drop of water from dams has entered the city water grid, and the city has tripled in size.
I'm extremely worried because imagine living a month without water and having a family.
Still in Honduras, police have attacked environmental activists who are protesting against the construction of a luxury housing project in a national park. Police fired tear gas on the protesters who had assembled in El Atillo, north of the capital, Tegucigalpa. The protesters, who have been demonstrating since last week, say the construction project located in the Tigre National Park will have a negative impact on the environment. They have vowed to continue with their protests until the project is cancelled. They also accuse the government of harassing them.
He already knows me, and there are death threats. Therefore, we're going to denounce violence before human rights organizations because I've already identified the individual who threatened me. I'm very sorry, but I already have 2 police officers denounced in court, and we'll go for the 3rd court case.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis, and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en ahí.
Dot in the eye. Saturdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back to From the South. Protesters in Malawi have returned to the streets of Lilongwe 2 days after the expiration of a 14-day break from protests ordered by the Supreme Court. Protesters have been demanding the removal of the head of the Electoral Commission, accusing her of manipulating the May presidential ballot. The election saw Peter Mutharika return to his seat as president for the next 5 years. Opposition parties have also challenged the results in court.
This woman called Jane Ansah is being mentioned everywhere and has shaken this country. She should just resign because Malawians do not want to be seen as bad people. We will change things.
Algeria's military head has ordered the police to block protesters from entering the capital, Algiers. This is the first time such an order has been given in the months of mass protests that saw the resignation of longtime President Abdelaziz Bouteflika.
I have instructed the National Gendarmerie to deal with these actions with firmness by executing the laws, including arresting vehicles and coaches used to bring demonstrators to the capital by seizing them and fining their owners.
The president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has pledged to enforce an emergency plan to fight violence against women in the country. Ramaphosa's remarks came after the women's minister reported in parliament that more than 30 women were killed by their spouses in August alone.
Women are dying with protection orders in their homes, and we therefore need to pay attention to all this. Modernizing the criminal justice system is critical if we want to see real progress in the fight against gender-based violence. Because we are still using outdated technology and practices, we have problems with victim statements not being recorded accurately or even vanishing. Dockets just disappear and so forth, and the perpetrators go loose.
A fire at an Islamic school in Liberia has killed at least 27 children. The victims' families, who looked on helplessly as their loved ones' bodies were recovered from the school building. The blaze swept through the Quranic school on Wednesday near the capital, Monrovia. 2 teachers were among those killed. Preliminary reports indicate that the blaze may have been caused by an electrical issue, but further investigations continue.
Those kids, we sympathize with them. To die in a fire is not an easy thing. It's very difficult. I don't even know what to say about that. We want to just let the family know that we are with them, our government, sympathize with them.
Barbados' government is taking steps to ease the backlog of imports and exports at the Bridgetown port. The business community voiced frustration about delays resulting in goods being stuck in the port for several weeks. This was due to technical difficulties experienced by the upgrade to a new automated system for customs data. The Customs Department is confident that by the weekend there will be significant improvement in cargo flow, and affected persons could also have their storage fees and other charges waived.
There has been a lot of discussion in the public space around demurrage and storage fees, 2 separate things. Demurrage fees are charged by the shipping lines and storage fees by the port. We have given the commitment as a government and as a port and as the board of the port that we will engage with the shipping lines to discuss the question of demurrage charges. We will be making representation on behalf of our local importers to the shipping lines to see how we can address that issue. But as it relates to port fees, storage fees, which we have full control of, we are favorably disposed to agreeing to waiving those fees on a case-by-case basis.
Bermuda has been placed on hurricane watch as Hurricane Humberto, now a Category 3, continues on a track that would take it to the northwest of Bermuda on Wednesday night. Hurricane force winds are already brushing the islands, but the biggest winds are expected to impact between 7 p.m. on Wednesday and midnight. The government is taking no chances with preparations. Public offices and schools are being closed, while a number of cruise ships have canceled their Bermuda stops. The National Security Minister, who is also the chairman of the Emergency Measures Organization, has urged the public to heed the weather warnings. Ethnic minorities in Colombia have once again condemned the government for not complying with the 2016 peace agreement. They say their lands remain as vulnerable as ever. We have more in this report.
Social leaders from Colombia's ethnic minorities gathered for a public hearing in which they denounced the lack of progress made by the government in implementing the 2016 peace agreements.
Every day we are surprised with new announcements and new interests that violate our rights and our political will. They don't want us to rise up against violence and all the social issues plaguing our communities.
Almost 3 years after the 2016 agreements were signed in Havana, many essential factors of the agreement have yet to be implemented, mainly the replacing of illegal crops and guaranteeing the safety of citizens. Social leaders say that less than 10% of what was agreed upon has been implemented. On top of this, hundreds of social leaders have been murdered since the signing of the agreements.
Let's
just look at the statistics. Our people are dying by the hundreds. We will not overcome this until the government steps in and protects our people against the interests of landowners and multinational companies.
State representatives say that social leaders can highlight the issues plaguing their communities now more than ever, thanks to the mechanisms implemented by the state. Nonetheless, over 600 social leaders have been murdered since the signing of the peace agreements.
What is happening today in our lands has been happening for a long time. The only difference is now we are able to make these events public. Thanks to the peace agreements, communities are able to denounce the crimes that are committed against them. They can also leave their lands and have talked with authorities.
Ethnic minorities hope the government provides them with the resources soon to implement the peace agreements. They say they are living through a humanitarian emergency and need the state to step in and dismantle paramilitary groups.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis, and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dotting the I. Saturdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back to From the South. The government of Nigeria has continued repatriating its citizens from South Africa following an orgy of xenophobic violence that left 12 people dead and dozens injured. On Wednesday, more than 100 returnees arrived in the commercial capital Lagos from South Africa aboard a private chartered aircraft. Nigerian citizens were some of the worst affected migrants in the latest wave of xenophobic attacks, which started in the city of Pretoria before spreading to Johannesburg and other parts of the country.
It affected us because for the business, nothing is going on, nothing is moving, everything is static, nothing is going on. Even the kids, they are staying, even they told my kids by the school that they are coming to ban them by the school, but from there, my kids, she's scared to go to school, so I decided no, it's better we come back to our home.
I don't think I was able to go back to South Africa because if you're walking the streets, you're not safe. You understand? So those people that are still angry, but they're safe. So the most, what surprised me a lot, when they're breaking the shop, governments don't even care. They don't even like bring a police to come and help the situation. So I don't think I can be able to return back to South Africa.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has claimed Washington has proof that attacks on Saudi oil installations originated in Iran, despite the fact that Houthi rebels in Yemen claimed responsibility. During an impromptu visit to Saudi Arabia, Pompeo added that the U.S. wants to build a coalition of European and Arab partners against Iran. Earlier, Pompeo said that the drone attacks on 2 Saudi oil installations on Saturday was an act of war against the kingdom. However, Iran has strongly denied any involvement in the attacks. Meanwhile, the U.S. has announced an increase in sanctions on Iran. President Donald Trump wrote on Twitter that he had asked the Treasury Department to substantially increase sanctions on the country. U.S. President Donald Trump has named State Department official Robert O'Brien as his new national security advisor, replacing John Bolton. O'Brien has had a long career in foreign policy and has worked for both main U.S. parties. He currently heads hostage negotiations at the State Department. He comes on board at a time when Trump faces a number of crises, including heightened tensions with Iran. The newly named top advisor will also oversee critical immigration policy. O'Brien is Trump's fourth national security advisor. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected the formation of any government, which would include Arab parties. His comments come a day after he fell short of securing a majority in parliamentary elections. With more than 95% of ballots counted, Netanyahu's right-wing Likud party has so far won 32 seats in the Knesset, while Benny Gantz's Blue and White party takes 33 seats. In a sign of the demanding negotiations to come, Netanyahu is reportedly planning on canceling a trip next week to the UN General Assembly due to the political context in Israel.
There are only two options, either a government I run or a dangerous government that is based on Arab parties. And during these times, more than ever, especially in front of the big political and security challenges that we face, there must not be a government based on Arab anti-Zionist parties.
Leif Greenberg, a political sociologist, founding chair of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at Ben-Gurion University, spoke to Telesur about the Israeli elections results.
As a matter of fact, what we must understand now is that it's almost the same situation than before. We have two blocs that are unable to form a coalition, and mainly they can block each other, but not more than that. The only party that is not positioning itself here or there is the party of the Russian voters, led by Lieberman. And he was the person that brought about these elections because he didn't want to join Netanyahu, despite the fact that he was part of his coalition in the past. Now he's demanding the formation of what he calls a national secular unity government. That means he's trying to force Netanyahu and the Benny Gantz, the two big parties, to form a coalition with his party, and to exclude both the religious parties and for sure the Arab parties. This is the situation now, and Netanyahu is doing everything he can do in order to prevent his indictment. This is his problem, because at the moment he's not a prime minister, he will be probably indicted. We can understand that no one will be able to ignore what's going on now. The attempt to build a national coalition in this or other way, it will be to prevent the Palestinian parties to be part of the political game. As a matter of fact, this was the main attack on Yitzhak Rabin 25 years ago, that he's building a coalition based on the Palestinian parties, voters and citizens. And the complete delegitimation of Rabin brought to his assassination. Now, Netanyahu is exactly doing the same kind of argument, delegitimizing the right of the citizens, Palestinian citizens, to be part of the political game. And in a sense, it might work. Because if you don't count the 12 members of the Knesset voted by the Palestinians, you cannot build an alternative coalition to Netanyahu. This is the idea, to prevent any alternative coalition.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.